communication. Communication is that whatever we know, whatever we have in our brain, and also the thoughts and ideas and feelings that we have, how do we convey or how do we transmit it to another person, not only by speech and writing, which is verbal or oral communication and written communication, but also by gestures, which, as I will discuss later, is what is known as soft communication or body language, non-verbal or non-written communication. So these non-verbal communication components are, as far as we are concerned, the bedside manners. How do you behave with the patient on the bedside? And one example is that when you are examining a patient, you want to examine the abdomen, you uncover the patient. You take the blanket off or the sheet off, then you ask the patient to take the shirt or the kurta up. And when you have finished, you don't leave the bedside like that. You have to recover the patient. So that is a bedside manner. Just one example. The body language, how you stand, how you walk, how you do anything without saying anything also, that also is part of non-verbal communication. And as I said, even your thoughts and ideas, what is going on in your mind. So if you have a problem at home, if you have problem at your work, it should not ideally transmit to the patient when you are dealing with the patient. And a very important component of non-verbal communication is listening. When the other person, and in this case, the patient is talking, whether you are listening to the patient attentively with full attention, that also is part of non-verbal communication. And listening also becomes important when you are with your seniors, when they are giving instructions to you for doing, for following, or for learning. When they are asking a question to you in an exam, very frequently I have seen as an examiner that the student is not even able to understand the question because he was not listening attentively. And then obviously the answer is not going to be correct. And same thing happens in an interview also. So listening also, attentive listening with full 100% attention is also an important part of non-verbal communication. So look at this lady. She has spent $200, 100 each for her and her husband to buy the tickets for this opera. But he's dozing off in between because obviously it doesn't interest him. He's not interested. So you also have to be careful that what you say, what you speak, you have to keep the audience in mind. Who's listening to you? And I'll give you an example. Suppose there is a conference of the coolies of Indian Railway, and you go and talk there about a system by which heavy luggage can be transferred from the train to outside. Is it correct that you are speaking and addressing the coolies? So same way in our surgical gastroenterology conference, once somebody presented patients with enterocutaneous fistula following gynecological and obstetric operations. Good, because enterocutaneous fistula concerns GI surgery. But there is no need to give the details of the obstetric or the gynecological procedure because you are addressing GI surgeons. The same lecture, when you present in a gynecology meeting, then your content has to be different. So you have to look at the audience, and in your case, you have to look at the educational status, the socio-economic status, the understanding level of the patient before you start talking to the patient, either for taking a history or for counseling or for taking a consent. So you have to tailor make your communication depending on who the patient or the relatives is. So this is one example. The doctor asked the patient to bring a sample of the stool, and the patient was a carpenter. He brought a sample of the stool in that bottle. So it also depends that what language, what terms you use. What stool means to us doesn't necessarily mean stool to everyone. This is just a very gross example, but there are so many such examples where what is true for us may not be true for the other. And this holds true for acronyms. When we use acronyms, in our specialty, we may understand, but somebody else in another specialty may not understand it, even in medicine. So one has to be very careful in using terms and phrases. This is a real picture where you can see my name here, V K Kapoor, and there is only one person in the audience. This is a morning session where we are conducting the session. So sometimes it happens that, and he also is the organizing committee chairman. So sometimes it happens, but we wanted to stick to time, so we started. But whatever may be the situation, you must try to give your best. Don't think if I had thought that there is no audience and I can speak whatever I want, I'm losing an opportunity to practice speaking. So whatever may be the opportunity, you should try to put in your best, because every effort, everything you do is a rehearsal for the next, and you will improve. Also, you have to be aware of the social and especially religious. Now, this is an email which I did receive. So they said Happy Muharram. Now, those who know a little bit about Islamic religion, Muharram is not an occasion to be happy. It's a day of mourning. But as a routine, just as they would send a Happy Diwali, Happy Holi, Happy Eid message, they sent a Happy Muharram message. So you have to be careful when doing something. And if you are not sure, try to avoid such blunders, such mistakes. So just another example of how to modulate your presentation. Now, you can present a case when you are discussing it as if it is a exam-oriented case discussion, where the aim is to make a diagnosis and how to investigate and how to manage. That presentation of the case is different from a bedside presentation, which you are doing to your consultant the day after the patient has been admitted, where the target of the presentation or the aim of the presentation is, how do we go about managing this patient? So there you don't hide anything, you disclose everything so that the consultant can make a decision about the management. So same patient, when you are presenting in the seminar room as a case presentation, as a preparation for exam, the presentation is different, and the same patient when you are presenting in the ward round for management of the patient, it is different. So in the first case, you are the prime beneficiary as a student. In the second case, the patient has to be the prime beneficiary as the patient. So communication, as Dr. Amita said, as a doctor, our most important communication is with the patients and relatives, but communication with colleagues, seniors, peers, and juniors, communication with other departments, consultations is very, very important part of communication. How we communicate with the paramedical staff, because they are the ones who execute what you say, what you order, giving drugs, giving fluids, removing tubes, taking patient from one place to another. Even a safai wala is important. And then in our setup, I would very briefly touch on this: politicians and bureaucrats, how to talk to industry, and of course, scientific communication, how you present a case, how you present a seminar, how you present a journal club in your departmental meeting, how you present a CGR in an institutional meeting, and then when you go to conferences, how to make a paper presentation. That, of course, I'm not going to cover in great detail today, because that's a separate topic in itself. And briefly, I will touch on your own family, how to communicate with them also. So as far as communicating with patients is concerned, these are an absolute no-no. You should not be doing any one of these things. And some of these are like, even if the patient is a poor farmer from a village who's totally uneducated, who doesn't understand even one word of what you are saying, even if I tell him कि तुम्हारे gallbladder या तुम्हारे पित्त की थैली में पथरी है, he doesn't even know what gallbladder is or पित्त की थैली is, where it is. It doesn't mean that I insult him. Don't be judgmental. I have seen, heard this lot of doctors saying, अरे ये तो वहां से आया है a particular place, और इसका तो ये अभी देखो 100 प्रॉब्लम अपनी बताएगा, उसमें से एक भी जेन्युइन नहीं होगी. So don't be judgmental. Don't take people as if they are going to behave in a certain way. And obviously, don't be rude. A doctor should never speak loudly. You should never shout. The only situation where I tell my residents that you can shout or you can run in the hospital is if there is a cardiac arrest. There is no other situation where you should either be shouting or running in the hospital. There are few things which should be avoided. They are not an absolute no-no, but you should not be doing it. You should not be arrogant. You should not be boasting. This is important when you go and work on your own private setup. Don't be too complicated. Don't think that if you use a lot of jargon, the patients will get impressed by you. And don't try to deceive patients. Be honest, be truthful, and you should appear as if you are caring for them. So what is required is that, yes, you should speak with authority so that patient develops confidence in you. You should be very clear. You should show compassion. The patient should feel that you are caring for him or her. Decorum has to be maintained. Empathy. Empathy is a very important component of these soft skills. Empathy is slightly different from sympathy. Sympathy is when we say, अच्छा आपको ये तकलीफ है, मुझे बड़ा दुख हो रहा है. I'm very sorry that you are having this. As opposed to this, empathy is that you feel, first you stand at the same level as the patient is, and you feel the same way as the patient is feeling. So one example could be that you want to ask the patient to come for a follow-up, and patient comes from a distance, and you want an ultrasound to be done on the same day, which we very frequently do in our follow-up. Now, if I don't take care of this, the patient comes, gets an ultrasound, but ultrasound report he gets at 4 o'clock. So that day his OPD appointment goes waste. So I need to make sure that all this problem is taken care. So you have to put yourself in patient's position for that moment and think and behave the same way. And that is what is empathy. Of course, warmth, courtesy, these are basic things which patients expect from us. And let me tell you that in the long run, many of these positive habits, if you develop, they will definitely help you if you are working in a salaried job to get name, and if you are working in a corporate sector to get more patients and generate more revenue. Then comes that you communicate with your seniors, with your consultants when you are presenting cases, either in the OPD or during the ward rounds. So again, you should not be ambiguous. It should not appear as if you are not organized. You should not appear confused. You should not be vague. And verbose means that you use a lot of words, but they have no meaning or very little message to be conveyed. On the other hand, you should be very clear, but at the same time use minimum number of words. Be consistent. Consistent means that what you say today, you say that tomorrow also. So you can't say that today you say that the patient's chest x-ray was normal, and tomorrow when I come for ward rounds, you say no, it shows a patch of consolidation. You should be focused to the problem which you are dealing with. You should be very well organized. Your presentation should be systematic, and it should be true. I have said true as opposed to correct. You need not always be correct, but you should be true. You should not be telling a lie. If you don't know something, say I don't know. If you don't have some information, if you haven't collected a report, say I haven't collected it, but don't give a false or a fake or an imagined report ever. Now, this is what happens in a restaurant. I'm sure all of you have gone to restaurants which offer fine dining. So the waiter or the waitress comes, you give an order, and almost always you would see that once you have finished giving an order, the waiter repeats the order just to confirm it. But we never do it on ward rounds, and that does create problem. So make sure that whatever instructions the consultants are giving, you note down, listen to them, note them down properly, and then if it is an important invasive thing to be done, reconfirm with your consultant if you have any doubt that is this what is to be done. And there are n number of examples where we wanted to do something and something else was done. So that should not happen. Again, a few things which I personally tell my residents, that when you are at the bedside of the patient, don't use words like pus, complication, death, or cancer. Use the corresponding medical terminology so that the patient doesn't unnecessarily get frightened. It's not good to ask in front of the patient who's going to go for, say, a procedure like endoscopic papillotomy, and ask how common is bleed as one of the complications of papillotomy in front of the patient. And then similarly, when you have a patient like this, you make a comment. We had a similar patient in the other unit last month, and this really happened, and he died after this operation. One of the residents said this in front of the patient who has had that operation. So if you have any doubts, any uncertainties, any questions, concerns in your mind, do it before you enter the cubicle of the patient, or in between two patients, or after the round, not in front of the patient, because what we are doing as a theoretical discussion, patient may think it applies to him or her. For example, when we discuss a patient with tuberculosis, cancer comes as a differential diagnosis. The moment you mention the word cancer for your academic discussion in front of the patient, that word goes into his mind. He's always worried that, am I suffering from cancer? When you are asked a question during the ward rounds, so suppose I ask you, how far is PGI from Charbagh, the railway station of Lucknow? Many of you may not still know the name. So instead of saying 10 kilometers or 12 kilometers, say Charbagh is about 6 kilometers from Hazratganj. Hazratganj is about 8 kilometers from PGI. PGI is on the outskirts of Lucknow. There is no direct communication. So the road which you take, it takes about 25 minutes. Don't beat around the bush. Sorry to Mr. George Bush, but don't beat around the bush. Listen to the question, give a specific, concise, direct answer. Now, in the different units, there are different systems of reporting. One is a regular reporting that, like if the consultant is not coming for the evening round, you do the rounds as the chief resident, and then you have to report to the consultant, similarly on a Sunday or a holiday. Other is an SOS reporting, that if there is a problem, then you report. Otherwise, it is presumed that everything is fine. So no news is good news. But at least in our unit, we have a policy that there are some events like a death, a major or unexpected event has to be reported. So a death or a major complication, even if you were anticipating it, it has to be reported. And I'll tell you why it is. This is when I was a resident in Delhi, and a patient with thyroid was operated, and the senior consultant, the patient died during the night, late night and early morning. So resident thought कि consultant को क्यों disturb करें, सुबह जब आएंगे तब बता देंगे. So he did it in good faith. But when the consultant was entering the hospital, the relatives met him. Now, he didn't know any about the death of the patient, so he behaved as if the patient is doing well, while the relatives knew that the patient is no more, and it created a problem. So a major event like death or a major complication which you were not expecting, or even if they were expected to happen, the consultant must be informed so that he or she knows about it. And of course, any unexpected event has to be informed. So it is our policy in our unit that even if it is 2 a.m., the resident can call any one of us. Be careful on that, because not all consultants may like that. Now, as I said, interdepartmental communication in the form of a consultation is important, because in our institute, the large majority of patients have multiple problems and they need opinion from other specialists. So when you receive a consultation, you must acknowledge it, that you have received it. You must present it to your senior, either senior resident or consultant, as soon as it is required, depending on elective or emergency. You must document it. And very importantly, not just one consultation, you must follow up to see what happened to that patient. And the format of presentation is that you tell that this, so just to give an example from our specialty, if I am a resident in surgical gastroenterology, I'll say, this is the patient or a consultation from Department of Medical Gastroenterology, or if the patient is in ICU, then from ICU. It's a day 14 after an onset of an attack of acute pancreatitis, which is a medico-surgical condition. So after giving the summary of the case, I say that he's a 40-year-old man who has severe acute pancreatitis, week 5 of what is known as walled-off pancreatic necrosis. The tissue around pancreas gets necrosed. And the team which is treating this patient, they want from us surgical intervention because patient is not responding to medical treatment and they think surgery will improve the condition of the patient. Then I tell my consultant that these are the CT findings, but these are the other factors. So patient has multiple risk factors. He's a patient with chronic kidney disease. He's hypertensive. He probably has some coronary artery problem also. He's a diabetic. And the current issue is that even after they have done a percutaneous catheter placement, the sepsis is continuing and they want possible surgical intervention. At the same time, I tell my consultant that in my opinion, this patient has a very poor nutritional status. His serum albumin is 2.8. So I don't think he is a candidate for surgery. And I think he should be advised further radiological guided percutaneous drainage. So that is how you handle a consultation to your consultant. And documentation, when you write, you should write what time you received, when did you see, so that there's no undue delay. Who has seen it? So your name, but on behalf of whom? So if that consultant wants to talk to the consultant in surgery, he or she should know who is the consultant in surgery to talk to. And what is your evaluation? You should summarize your assessment, what advice your consultant gave, what further investigations, what treatment. You must sign and you must put your phone number. So in our hospital, the CUG number, so that the resident, if he has any doubt, if he wants any further clarification, can call you. If you do all these things, a lot of your time and a lot of the other team's time will be saved. And ultimately, it will be the patient who benefits. So consultation handling and consultation response is very, very important part of patient-related interdepartmental communication. Try to avoid small talk when you are in the hospital. We all do that, especially when we are doing something which goes for some time, and it does happen in the theater. Small talk means anything unrelated to what you are doing. And it can cause problem. For example, in this plane crash, it was found by the black box review that when the plane crashed, the pilots were talking about corona and COVID. Agreed, it was a new thing at that time. They were worried, but that was not as important as what they were doing, that is flying the plane. Of course, if you are a surgical resident, be careful that while you are looking at the monitor, somebody is watching. So that's me standing. They didn't know that I'm standing here. So if they're doing any small talk, I would listen to it, and it may be even something against me. So be careful. But ideally, you should not be doing any small talk when you're doing any patient-related activity. Now we are in the era of new normal. Like today, all of you are connected to me, and I'm connected to you online. So that's the new normal, and we all have to learn the tricks. You saw how I fumbled with this new platform because I have never used it earlier. So we have to be tech savvy. And it should not be that we don't know about the new technology and then we do something like this. So you have to be careful, because the moment you share your screen, whatever is on your screen is seen by everybody. So if you have put your personal files on the desktop, somebody will see it. So income tax return, visit to Australia, presentation here, presentation there, everybody will see what is on your desktop. So be very, very careful. This is like exposing yourself in public, which you unintentionally do. At the same time, you have to make sure that your online manners are appropriate. Before you log in, or as soon as you log in, make sure that your camera and your microphone is on only when it is required to be, not other times. Otherwise, everybody will see. And there was this video, I wanted to show it, but it would have probably become unparliamentary. There was this lady who was attending a Zoom meeting with the office. And as we always do in a Zoom meeting, we dress only the upper half of the body. And she was beautifully dressed in the upper half. But in between, probably something happened with her child, and she stood up to look after her, him or her. And everybody saw how she was dressed in the lower half of the body. So we have to learn these manners and etiquettes very well. I was referring to the terms, so acronyms are very dangerous. And this is one real life example. This was a senior cardiologist, a Padma Shri awardee, who was questioned by the National Investigating Agency because he had conveyed a WhatsApp message which said INR 2.578 to a suspected terrorist. And they thought that they were talking of 2 crore 78 lakh rupees, whereas it was INR, International Normalized Ratio, a part of PT assessment, prothrombin time assessment, because that person was his patient on follow-up. So be very careful. And things like this, I'm sure those who are not in GI related specialties will not understand. What it stands for is gallbladder cancer, stage 3, status extended cholecystectomy, no symptoms, clinical examination, no abnormality detected, investigation within normal limits, case seen by professor. This is a new acronym I learned that day. Follow up after 6 weeks with LFT and ultrasound. So yes, I can understand it. Maybe GI surgery residents can understand it, but I'm sure a neurology resident will not be able to make out anything out of this. Towards your seniors, there is a very thin line. You should not be crossing it. So there is a difference between a discussion, which is an academic, scientific discussion versus argument. There is a difference between sycophancy and loyalty. And there is a difference between being intelligent versus clever. These are very subtle differences, but we should be careful about it. Again, as far as I'm concerned, this may not be true with everyone. I would want all my residents at least not only to be with brain, but with spine and guts also. Spine means that they should be able to stand tall in front of anyone, and they should have guts to say what they think is correct. So if I'm doing something wrong, if I'm saying something wrong, they should have the spine and guts. I know that they have better brains than me because they read more than I do, but they should have the courage and strength to stand up and say, no, Dr. Kapoor, what you are saying is not correct. This is what the recent literature says. So that is what I personally want. But again, be careful on that regard. Assess your local situation and then show how much spine and guts you have. You have to be you have to learn how to communicate in email also. So this email I frequently receive from students because and normally whenever I do a presentation, I always offer to the students that if you want some literature related to this, which I have published, send me an email, I'll send you that. So after every presentation, I send about 30-40 students a copy of my chapter or book or leading article. Unfortunately, very few of them respond, which is also not correct. There is a very senior colleague of mine. He is the chief of GI surgery in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Dr. Piyush Sani. And one thing which I have learned from him, that every mail he receives, he responds. So that's one basic, it's a courtesy. If you are walking on the road, somebody says hello, namaste, hi to you, you do respond. Same way, every mail must be responded. So I'm saying this because when I send these mails with my chapter or book, I receive very few email responses saying thanks. And sometimes I receive responses like best wishes also. Best wishes are what you give to your younger colleagues, not to a senior colleague. So you have to learn the manners of email communication also. I would briefly touch on character because that's also very, very important. I personally would not like any of my residents to have these qualities. Again, these are my personal choices. That is how I was groomed as a resident. My seniors never wanted me to have any of these qualities, and that is what I would also insist. But again, I would say that's my personal choice. At the same time, I want them to be assertive. Assertive means what you think is correct, you should be able to say. And you should be candid. You should not hesitate. Brinda, your microphone is on. Brinda Mathur, please put your microphone off. So you should be candid, that you should not be hesitant or afraid to speak what is your conviction. You should be firm. but at the same time, integrity. Integrity means honesty, sincerity, and truthfulness. Very important to how you communicate with your subordinates also. I'm sure many of you must have watched this movie, Munna Bhai. One lesson which I learned from this movie was how to behave with your subordinates. They are also your colleagues. They may not be as well educated, they may not be as well placed, they may be even younger in age than you, but you must behave with them as you would like people to behave with you. And I personally feel that I would respect a person who can speak strongly, loudly to a senior rather than shout at a junior. At a junior person, at a younger person, at a person who's placed below us, it's very easy for us to shout at him. But if we have the strength and courage, we should be able to shout at a person who's above us if he is wrong. That most of us are not able to do. So please treat your subordinates also with the same respect as you would like to be treated. Few words about language. That's another topic for a separate lecture. In Amita, how much time do I have?
You are there till 4 o'clock. If you wanted to take some questions, you can leave 10 minutes. We still have about 18 minutes. So we can go on for another 8 minutes and then we can have questions.
Okay. Thank you. So, I know that English is not our mother tongue. Many of us have not been educated in English medium schools. Even I was not educated in an English medium school. I remember when I was in class 8, I went to a boarding school on a government scholarship. Till that time, I had studied in Hindi medium schools, and I stood up and asked some question, and everyone in the class laughed at me. So we all have that deficit, most of us. But at the same time, once we enter the medical profession, we have to learn the language, because that, right or wrong, is the language of communication, is nationally as well as internationally. So pronunciation, grammar, spelling, they are all very important. Just a few examples related to medicine. There is a difference between reflex and reflux. So you should be clear what you are talking about. And this happens that there are certain parts, like in Western UP, when you want to say dawn, they always say dawn. So if you want to say non-diabetic, the student kept saying non-diabetic, whereas actually he meant was non-diabetic. So we have to be clear in our pronunciation. Another example of the vagaries of English language, if you put the word only in a sentence, the meaning changes depending on where you put only. If you put it in the beginning, then it means that only I kissed her in the train yesterday, no one else kissed. If you put it in the end, it becomes that I kissed her yesterday only and did not wait for today. And every place gives a different meaning to the sentence. Punctuation also is very important. How to use these punctuations and the other components of English grammar, spelling also is very important. And you must spell check, but spell check with the computer sometimes create problems. I know that one of my abstracts, when I did the spell check, the computer changed the tumor from resectable to respectable, which obviously it is not. So one has to be very careful, and we have to do a manual spell check also. As far as medical records communication is concerned, again, as I said in the beginning, that's a separate topic in itself. Maybe I will cover it in another 01 course, but this must be avoided. This is from our own hospital. Now, I don't know which Sunil is this, what is the patient's ID, when was this test done. So this must be avoided. Every document related to the patient must be identifiable if it comes out of the file. So if it is lying on the counter, everyone should be able to make out which patient this document belongs to and which date that note is from. Also, just one more thing about the medical record documentation. I know that 99.9% of the residents in our institute, in our hospital, are very sincere, very hardworking. They work 25 hours a day. But what you are doing to help and save the patient. But how you communicate with the patient and relatives, especially if things go wrong, avoids a litigation. Now, it's not very important here in an institution because there is an institutional umbrella protecting all of us. But tomorrow, when you go out and work on your own, it will become very important. So if you communicate well with your patient and relatives, even if things go wrong, very little chance that there will be a medical legal case against you. But even if there is a medical legal case, what saves you is what you document. So everything you do, everything you think, every decision, every discussion must be documented with date, time, and signature. And that is what will protect you. So you keep doing what you are doing to save and help the patient, which means work hard. But at the same time, more so when you go out, document. And here you do it for our sake, because ultimately we are responsible legally for what is done to the patient. Just one slide about scientific communication. Again, maybe I'll cover this in another lecture. We all use slides, but don't use slides as clutches. Use them as a walking stick so that it gives you grace. It makes your presentation listenable, and the audience listens to you with attention. Your appearance is very important. Now, if I have to go, say, to Varanasi or Hardwar or Bodh Gaya to perform the last rites of my grandfather who died last week, and when I reach there, I ask ki Pandit Dinanath kahan hai, and somebody directs me to this room where I find this gentleman. Do you think I will think that he is a Pandit Dinanath who will do the last rites? No, because the image we have in our mind of a Pandit is this. So your appearance is very important. The patients, the relatives, the lay public has an image of a doctor in their mind, that it will be a person who is well groomed, well dressed, behaves in a particular way, and that we have to fulfill. That is very important. You won't go to a beach in a suit, although I must admit I have been to a beach in a suit. There was this meeting in Miami. I was all alone. My family was not there. And this was my first visit to Miami. The hotel where the meeting was being held was on the sea beach only. So I thought I might as well go there and have a look. And I went there and people started looking at me with staring eyes, and immediately I came back. And now, same way, a lady would not go into the swimming pool in a sari unless you are doing a modeling for a sari business. So same way, you don't come to the hospital in an attire which is suitable for a gym or a outing or a movie hall or a mall. So it's very important, and my colleague who's going to talk after me, Dr. Anu, is very particular about this, that residents, and for that matter, everyone, all doctors, must be appropriately dressed for a hospital appearance. And this is an example from the day before yesterday convocation. Again, communication is very, very important. Look at some of the pictures which some students provided for this occasion. That's not done. You know that this picture is going to be projected during the convocation. You should provide a formal picture rather than sending a casual photograph, which may be all right for a social media post. So every step you take, everything you do, every way you behave is important, because you are not like other people. You are a doctor, and now you are going to be a specialist, a super specialist. Just a word about gender. When I logged in, I saw that out of about 30, about 10 were female sounding names. So, but still medicine remains a boys' club. There is a lot of work-life imbalance as far as female doctors are concerned. Not in our institute, but elsewhere, there is a little bit of exploitation also. There are issues of privacy. There are no separate areas for female residents or even female consultants in some areas. I think we have to do this not only from legal point of view, but from moral and ethical point of view, that we not only have to be gender sensitive, that means we don't do things which are not allowed, but at the same time gender responsive, that we take steps, we say or we do things or we think even things which help both genders to grow and develop equally. So gender responsiveness is even doing more than being gender sensitive. Last, as I said, your family is also important. Your own self is important, but your family is important. So if you're not married, your parents, if you are married, then not only your parents, but your spouse, your kids, we all do this, that we dedicate ourselves. All of us have done that when we were residents, so much to our work, to our profession, to our career, that we forget the families. But we should not do that. We should, and just one example I will give. So if you are married and your boss was not happy with you, or your patient did not do well, or you had a problem, or you were in theater for a long time, when you reach home, don't start shouting at your spouse. Don't misbehave with him or her. Leave your problems or your worries of the hospital in the hospital only. The moment you enter the residential campus, you become a son, a daughter, a father, a husband, or a wife, whatever you are, and don't mix the two things. Try to maintain a good balance between work and life, so that your own mental health, your own family health also is good. So with that, I would finish.